Sure, everybody, and welcome that you're here. Welcome to Lincoln University. Welcome to B-Link Innovation. My name is Renewable Cody, and on behalf of the B-Link team and Lincoln University, I welcome you to campus. I'm just going to do a little bit of a boring thing before I'm going to introduce Sam. And for the ones that are regulars, I'll sound like a little broken record because you've heard me to do this many times. For the ones that are new, please pay attention. Housekeeping. We do not expect any fire drills. So if we hear the alarm, it is the real deal. And so at that moment in time, we will make sure that you are safe and we take emergency exits. There is one on the back, the door that you come into, and also through that emergency exits. What will happen is we'll gather in front of the grass here at Lincoln Agritech. But Katie is here, Joe is here, and I see some of the Lincoln University colleagues here as well, so they know the way. So the moral of the story, the one that runs the fastest, that's the one you follow, right? Because they know where to go. Toilets, just across the door that you come into. So if you walk that direction, is the first door on your left-hand side. You probably noticed that we are serving you some refreshments. Some of you have discovered that some of them has alcohol in there. And I know one thing for sure, that the people that are waiting for you at home would want your home safe. So please do drink responsibly, and I will remind you of that. Thank you. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce B-Link Innovation. B-Link Innovation is the innovation hub of Lincoln University, where we basically do three things. We try to connect people, and that's what we're doing at events like this, because most probably you see people that you have never seen before. Brilliant. Go and talk to them, because if you then share the same passion, we know for sure that collaboration will actually take place. And if collaboration takes place, that's where the real innovation occurs. So that's what we're doing here at B-Link Innovation and at Lincoln University. To the speaker, Sam Elder. Sam is the General Manager Energy Futures for Orion. And although she originates from the United Kingdom, she's well and truly integrated in the energy network here in New Zealand. And I have the pleasure and the honor of working with Sam on multiple projects. And the cool thing about Sam is that she is not afraid to think big picture, even if that big picture is really difficult to achieve. Even if a lot of people say, well, it's a big picture, how can you make it real? She is really into that. And then she backs it up with a really knowledgeable team that works together with her. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Sam. Sam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's lovely to be. I don't need a mic or anything, do I? It's lovely to be here this afternoon, and thanks to him and Kate and the B-Link crew for inviting me, and thanks for coming along. So as Wim says, I'm the GM Energy Futures at Orion. I have a team that brings all the expertise. I just have some big ideas or something. My background, as Wim said, is I'm from the UK originally. Started out in mechanical engineering, actually, and worked in the space industry as a thermal systems engineer for about 11 years before coming out here, and then worked at Plant and Food Research back in 2006-07 as a program coordinator back in the day, and then went on a varied career journey, which included 6 years at Meridian Energy as their insight manager for the retail part of the business, so setting up some pretty leading at the time analytics capability to help the organisation to use smart meter data to better understand and support customers and business performance, as well as the smart energy program that we were doing back in 2010, 11, 12, 13. Seems like that's a long time ago now, right? And then went from there to Arkina. Has anyone heard of Arkina? So Arkina is an organisation, it's a charity that supports social enterprise in New Zealand. So I joined them back in 2014 and set up their South Island office and spent a couple of wonderful years working with entrepreneurs and communities and corporates around Aotearoa who wanted to find business models that could create sustainable impact. This was in the day when social enterprise wasn't really a thing. No one had ever really heard of it. So did that for a couple of years, went to Environment Canterbury from there, the regional council, as a senior strategy manager, and led 3 portfolios of the 6 in the council, they being transport and urban development, air quality and hazards risk and resilience, which included the climate change portfolio or programme, again, back in 2016 when that wasn't really a word that got used by the regional council. And so what we did was introduce a climate change integration programme, which was about how you embed it into every decision that you make as a council. So did that, and then ended up at, set up a little business called Climate Navigator when I left there in 2019, which was all about supporting organisations to flip their business model from seeing climate change as a threat and something, oh God, how am I going to deal with this, to actually, if you can make it part of your purpose, part of your role is to address climate change, you're going to have a really solid proposition moving forward because it's such a big problem that society needs to solve. And then I spent the last 3.5 years at Orion. And my role at Orion is really leading a small team, a new team that we've established over the last 3 years to support the organisation and our region to explore what our energy future might mean for the organisation and for our customers and communities. So that's a little bit about me, but can I just see who else is and who's in the room here? Because I guess we've got quite a varied group. So can you put your hand up if you're from university? Oh, a few. Great. What about if you're from industry? Industry folk? Yeah, few there. What about local community? Few double hands going up. Okay. What else? Government? Any government, local government? Yeah. Two. Anybody else who's not put their hand up yet?
Farmer.
A farmer, sorry. Farmer, excellent. One farmer. And sorry.
Plant food research.
Plant and food research. So yeah, welcome. Okay, great. So a real mix. So I thought today it would be really good to have a coordinator because they've probably got a range of different interests in the room. I've got quite a lot of content I can work through, but I don't want to hit you with a half-hour monologue. So please feel free to jump in and ask questions, make observations, challenge, discuss as we go. So let's bring the collective intelligence and interest in the room to the next half hour. Is that okay? So we've done the introductions. I'm going to do a little bit of a 101 on energy systems, transition and trilemma. We'll talk a little bit about local transitions in Aotearoa, in Canterbury, could be even in Lincoln. Some of the challenges and opportunities, I'll just share a little bit about that and we'll see what I'm missing because there's no, energy is a big topic. And so I've got some views, but I'm definitely not knowledgeable in every aspect of energy. And I don't think anyone can claim to be, it's a big topic. And then if we've got time, I'll talk a little bit about what Orion's doing, our strategy and some of the initiatives that we're doing that may be of interest to you. And we'll have a bit of a wrap up in our discussion. So Orion, just to finish the introductions. Anyone not know who Orion is? Okay, I'm going to pick on someone. Would you like to tell me who Orion is? Gentleman in the blue. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Orion. They're power lines company that spread lines between generators and consumers.
So, yeah, lines company, electricity distribution business. Yeah, we won't go there today. Yeah, not really sure. Yeah, so we're the electricity distribution business for Christchurch City and Selwyn. So this is our area. So we work from the mountains to the sea, if you like, from Arthur's Pass to the sea, and the Rakaia River to the Waimakariri River. We, as you say, we take the electricity from the transmission grid through to the site.
I'm a farmer.
Yep.
Like the other things. And we're a customer of one. And I found the customer service to be outstanding.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
And
that's great.
so recent times we were going to the factory on the place and you had to get a bigger transformer in place. And, but someone that put a name on that was kind of dusted within, say, 3 months. And maybe paid $3,500 for that. It would cost $20,000. So it was magnificent.
Brilliant. Thank you for the feedback. I'll pass that on to the team that will look after that. Yeah, great. Okay. All righty. And our purpose is powering a cleaner, brighter future with our community. It used to be 4, we changed it about 3 years ago to work quite intentionally. It's all about working together. And just some numbers, I won't go through all of this, but if you think about our customers, we have about 400 major customers in our network area, which are typically over about 0.2 megawatts of load. And we have 225,000 smaller customers. Most of those are obviously households. So that's the kind of scale of. The energy systems transition trilemma. When I say energy system, anyone want to articulate what we mean by an energy system? The hand's going up. A little picture which helps, right? So I think when I talk about the energy system, it's more than just electricity. Okay, so if you think about energy, we've got 3 layers here that we're looking at. One is networked energy, so that might be electricity, or in some parts of the country, some parts of the world, you might have a reticulated gas system as well. Then you go from there to all energy. So then you're looking at things like petrol and diesel transport, off-grid gas, coal, bioenergy, aviation and shipping fuels, so other uses of energy, not reticulated. And that all fits into a wider economy. And the point being here that as we decarbonise and we start to move, electrify more of our world, the edges between these 3 areas are blurring. It's getting more complex to understand and plan for an electricity system when it's starting to link in with the transport system, with an urban form, with aviation and shipping, which previously didn't use electricity. And as a network business, we have to try and figure out what the changes in demand on our network might be, supply and demand on our network, and then make sure that we're building for that. All right. So in the energy transition, anyone want to talk about what does an energy transition mean? Anyone heard the phrase energy transition? Hands up if you've heard the phrase energy transition before. Lots of people, right? Some of you have gone so much of the organisation. What do you mean by energy transition?
Energy to storage, to batteries, storage, or wind, or solar.
So transitioning your power, sort of your energy source. Any other thoughts as part of that?
Distribution. Change the distribution. For example, hack through lines, maybe centralised with cars and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Is there an element of energy efficiency, possibly trying to use less energy as part of energy transition?
Yeah, absolutely. Energy efficiency is an energy systems engineer of old, where you start, right? Start on the demand side. So when I talk about energy transition, I'm meaning the transition to a decarbonised, resilient and equitable energy system. Transition from the system we've got today, which is decarbonised, is resilient and is more equitable. What's driving change in the system? Changing to different fuel sources or energy sources, driven by costs, yeah.
Ecological, too.
Yeah, carbon, climate,
That's self-control.
self-control, yeah. As in,
Generate your own power. You have to deal with it a lot.
but what it makes it, yes, preferences, right? What do people value? And so just a few things that are driving it. Climate change, absolutely, we need to decarbonise. And we need to build resilience to the impacts of climate change. Technology, right? You can now generate electricity on your roof, as we know. You've got smarts that can manage your whole home energy system or site energy system much more efficiently. And the other one that often doesn't get mentioned is population growth, urban form. It's not just transport, it's building design, it's urban design. It's driving quite a lot of change in the system. So that's just 3 drivers. There's lots more, but just to give you an idea. Anyone know about the trilemma? Anyone heard of the trilemma? No.
Just do a toilet.
And it's, yes, that's exactly right. Okay. So this is about, as we're transitioning, there's different things we need to balance, right? Different tensions, different opportunities. This is a global framework, I guess, which helps us to navigate those choices and values. And there's 3 points to this trilemma. The first is sustainability and decarbonisation. That's one of the things that we want to drive and achieve. We also want to ensure energy is secure and reliable and resilient. And we want to make sure it stays affordable and equitable. Right? And those 3 things can be in tension. Right? So depending on what you value as an individual, as a homeowner, as a business, as a community, might drive you towards different solutions.
Elaborate on what you mean by justice there. Is that what you?
Yeah, so equity, am I going to get this right? Equity is about, you've got equality, we're all equal. You've got equity where we're addressing the inequalities of society. And then you've got justice where you are truly creating a just transition where you're righting historic wrongs, for example.
But that would be the key to it, right? So it's more affordability. That would be
Yes.
the first thing I see. There's
Yeah,
affordability is such a small part of equity and justice. It's like
absolutely.
switching from dirty energy to clean energy. It's where those impacts going to sit.
That's right. So you will often see in the trilemma sustainability, security, and affordability. Like globally, that's often the frame. I've added to it here, and so decarbonisation is a real big driver there. Resilience to climate change and alpine forests and other aspects is a big one. And equity and justice is as important as affordability. So one of the things that I want to share with you that's really important to us as a distribution business, and I think is a really important piece to share with our communities, is some research from the UK, which looked at, as we transition, this was in the UK context, they looked at different pathways for the transition. And they said, what's the difference in cost benefit, if you like, to the UK as a whole, if we take a place agnostic approach to the transition, and we pretty much do the same thing across the whole country, or we take a place-based, a place-specific approach, which looks at each individual town, city, community, and what's the optimum transition pathway for that place. Okay, and there's pretty mind-boggling numbers. And this was PwC, it was a consortium of organisations as part of a £400 million research programme called Prospering from the Energy Revolution. So it's a pretty solid piece of work. And it showed that a place-specific approach would take £58 billion of investment versus a place-agnostic would need £195 billion. The energy savings from a place-specific approach would be £108 billion versus £57 billion from an agnostic approach. And the overall societal benefits from a place-based approach, £825 billion versus £444 billion.
Sorry, you said bringing questions.
Yeah.
Does that look feasibility of integrating different approaches as well? What's the reality lens on that?
Give me a clue. What do you mean?
Let's say 2 local communities that are geographically close
Yeah.
have a completely different approach based on what their local industries are and how they use energy, etc. Can they fit together in terms of a agreement?
You'd have to drill into the research to look at to what extent that is possible, to do that. But certainly this looked at, I would say it did as much as it could to get there. But part of the challenge, you're right, in a transition is you've got your places and then the whole thing needs to work together as a country and globally as well. So it's all one part of the big system.
Could you give an example? I think I understand what you mean. Could you give an example of a place-specific approach versus what you really mean by place-agnostic?
Sure. So it might be a transport system and how you decarbonise your transport system, very much place-based, right? It's not going to be the same everywhere. It might be where you invest in energy efficiency and what are the opportunities for a place that are different, urban form, food industry, different fuel pathways. Some parts of the country might have great wind resource, other great solar resources. Basically, what are the opportunities within an individual place, and how do you bring those to life? It kind of speaks of what we call more of a bottom-up approach to the transition versus a top-down. It's not either or. But at the moment, we have quite a top-down energy system. And the proposition as we transition to more distributed, more local generation, more local planning, is that we get these benefits, but we need to start in the centre, start with energy citizens and consumers at sites, if you think, communities, and then to a regional, local view, and ultimately to a national view. And they do need to bring together, to your point, it's not like you can just do bottom up or just top down. But we've historically missed the bottom up piece. And we now need to take a much stronger approach to a bottom up. So that means if you take the trilemma, I'll draw it like that. We're putting communities and people at the heart. And if we do that, we'll deliver regional prosperity. The local transition. With decarbonising, thinking about the trilemma, we'll start with the decarbonisation piece. What might be some changes? It's all about supply and demand, right? Decarbonise. So what are some changes on the demand side? Well, these, yes. Transport, electrifying transport, big driver.
Process heat.
Process heat, big driver in our region. Yeah, we've got about 80 coal boiler sites in Orion's area, all of which are going to need to decarbonise over the next, well, by 2026.
Orion coming to knock on my door and offer me a small solution to my energy demands.
Right?
And not so much stuff down the wire.
Is that what they're doing?
No.
No. Yeah, well, we're not a solar provider, but yeah, people may be doing that. Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't want to try that?
There's, so
I've
we're,
got 20,000 farmers in behind me.
I think that would be great, but probably not us. We would support that. Yeah.
Come back.
Right. So if we go on the demand side, as we say, we've got transport is driving up demand for electricity, okay, and driving down demand for fossil fuels. We've got urban form. This is the spatial plan. If any of you can believe that, that's really changing how electricity will be used around the city, including more intense housing, mass rapid transit. If that is as we've all read in the news. Process heat, absolutely huge challenge to decarbonise that quickly for organisations that own those boilers. And for us, we've got to make sure the network's big enough to support that. And LPG. I think LPG use in our area is going up or down at the moment.
It's down.
No, it's going up.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah, quite significantly. Strong trend up. So that's the demand side, but we do have to ultimately decarbonise the site.
Where's the LPG?
Homes, a lot of homes.
Yeah, we've got a building industry that's big boom planted in the 1990s, building standalone houses, greenfield sites.
Yeah.
I think it was gas tanks wide, because that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years, and that's what they want to continue doing.
You're being very gracious by saying the 90s.
Well, maybe they moved a little bit forward from the 90s. So they're still building standalone houses, greenfield sites with delivered gas tanks.
And there's not an eco-friendly one amongst them.
Right. So then on the supply side, what's changing? You know, we've got solar, right? Not just on roofs. You could have roofs linked together as part of a local peer-to-peer network between houses, and not just household. Think of the amount of roof space there is in Hornby. Imagine if the local community of Christchurch or Selwyn got together and invested to cover those roofs and solar to generate electricity, which was local, or at least in part locally owned, and here for the benefit of the people of this place. No,
Reading times I'm looking at deer farming, cow dairy farming and solar. Deer farming, return for tax and drawings was $3,400 a year. Dairy farming was 45, I think, and solar, no capital outlay, $5,400 a year per year guaranteed for 30 years.
that's revenue.
That's
Okay.
deer farming, Solar was
Yeah.
top of the line.
Yeah.
No headaches.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment on those numbers, but interesting. And I think so. Rooftop solar on ground, to your point, and agrivoltaics. It's not about just put solar panels on your farm. You can grade steep under it, as is going to be happening at Brookside. But also there are. I mean, Ben can talk about this. There are some amazing high value crops that you could potentially grow under solar panels. So there's quite a lot of research going on that, right? How do we maximize the value of the land? And solar has a role to play in that. And be careful with the value of solar, because if there's lots of solar, but demand isn't flexing into it, what you see in Australia is the prices are going negative in the middle of the day because there's this massive glut of local generation to use it. So supply demand. So that's why the demand side and the supply side need to balance, or we need storage to make it work. So we
don't need to worry about energy efficiency.
Is that right? Why is that?
We're just going to have abundant electricity. Why is it?
Yeah, you're going to get your methods on concrete from.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all going to come colour through.
Okay. Great. We could spend an hour on that.
Yep.
I might come to that in a minute.
But I'm just wondering whether the impact of oversupply would be quite the same in a situation where we've got a lot of hydro, because presumably you could just keep more water behind the dam if you've got ample solar.
Yeah, hydro helps, and that you might recall the pumped hydro Lake Onslow scheme that the previous government was looking at. That was the New Zealand Battery Project was in time to look at that. It helps. Quite a big topic in itself. And our lakes hold about 6 weeks worth of electricity supply, mostly which is preserved for the winter and to help with winter peaking. So it helps, but it's definitely not enough. And there's more things like the TY deal, brings more demand response. But if you think about this, ultimately, you need these two things to balance locally. So if you're designing an energy system for your home, you want to make sure that as much as possible you're balancing supply and demand before you're exporting and they're importing, right? It's efficient. Same with an area downstream from a substation on the network. We want to make sure that that's optimized because that's the most efficient system as you go up in scale. So you kind of want flexibility locally as well as nationally. It's everything all at once, as they say. I just put a couple of other things. Offshore wind, don't know, right? It's certainly on the cards in places like Taranaki. A couple of years ago, they were talking about Canterbury, some of the developers. And I've just come back from the UK. The channel is full of wind farms now. 5 years ago, there were none. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling how quickly things happen.
Which is you've got things ideal because on one side you've got your energy source and then you've got producers. You've got a big hole in the middle.
Yeah.
That's storage.
Exactly. Pretty much bang on, yeah. So just before I finish, I talked about LPG here. Has anyone heard of the site, the eco-gas unit that's being set up in South Hornby? So this is basically taking organic waste and turning it into biomethane, which can then, could be an alternative for your LPG. It's primarily at the moment being designed for local industry, I think, in the area, but it's an opportunity to scale that, either at Hornby or elsewhere. So the thing that links the two is flexibility, right? As we talked about, you've got to manage supply and demand in this increasing renewable world. You've got really variable and intermittent sources of energy. So when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, what happens? We need flexibility. We need to flex our demand in response to that changing supply as much as possible. And then we need storage to come in and help as well. So a few things that help with that flexibility. Does anyone know that we control most domestic hot water cylinders in the area? Yeah, so if you're on a day-night tariff and you're on a night-controlled hot water cylinder, you could be saving on a couple $100 a year through that. All right, and we also use it to manage peaks when the system operator needs some help. Sorry?
Since managers in place.
Decades. Sorry?
1950.
Oh, thank you. There you go. Yeah, 153. So it's been around for a long time. Okay, and it means we've got a very highly optimized network here at Orion. You might manage flexibility within your home, so home energy management system, managing your supply and demand. We're doing a project looking at moving on from hot water project called ResiFlex, which is looking at different price signals to incentivize household flexibility as a distributor that retailers will then pass through to households, because that's the trick. We don't obviously have direct contract with households. That's a project we've just got going on at the moment to design and pilot some different price signals and see how well they get responded to. Okay. And this is a little community battery from Aussie. Beautiful, right? So there, the Australian government rolling out 400 community batteries across the country to support local communities to maximise the solar that's generated locally to be used locally, and also manage network constraints and support the national system.
Can you persuade me to trust those batteries?
Yeah, possibly. We can chat afterwards. We can chat afterwards if you want. I'm not sure. What are you not trusting?
Availability of titanium.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not they're going to blow up or not.
Okay. Right. I'm not a battery engineer expert, but I do drive an EV and very comfortable to do so. So safety is a pretty big issue, and these batteries are being rolled out all over the world. So nothing's foolproof. But I would say,
And one of the ways to look at the mineral mining problems with batteries is to consider the amount of mining and lithium and copper and all this is about 1/100th of the earth impact of the oil industry. So that's the
and another thing, the current battery technology is going to be antiquated within a decade. I mean, we're on the cusp of having viable solid state batteries. They're going to do away with the lithium problem completely. And, lighter weight, lower cost, faster recharge rates, superior performance across the board. And that's in the very near future.
the valid point that there's technology development happening all the time.
And then there'll be something else beyond that.
But if we always wait for the next perfect solution, we'll never do anything.
Get on with us.
Yeah, and there's no perfect solution. There's no silver bullets.
And there's a chance to do mining better, isn't there? Just, you can't just assume you go from dirty energy to clean energy and mine the same way. So if we're going to mine critical minerals, we can do it differently, right? Where the costs, you don't have companies like in the tar sands making $33 billion of profit a year with the communities not drinking the water.
Yeah.
So we can mine differently. It's not mining that's the problem. It's who's benefiting where the risks.
There's a risk there that you're outsourcing the ethical problem to another country. Just kind of close your eyes to it.
Which we're doing now.
Well, yeah, sure.
With all mining.
The other thing that's not being discussed is the recyclable. So minerals can be recycled, whereas fossil fuels stored. So there's a big difference there between what you're buying as to how it's used and how it's read.
And it's not in here, but what's the opportunity around a recycling system locally that could provide a national service for EV, for batteries, for PV panels, that kind of thing? They've all got really good materials in them that can be recycled and reused. Alrighty. And just the last one on storage. We're all going to be driving EV. I'm already driving EV, been driving for years, and they have a battery, right? They're now being described a little bit as batteries on wheels. To the price point of an EV now, effectively buying a battery and getting a free vehicle, buying new EV. So in a system which is increasingly going to value this flexibility, if those EVs are all plugged in all the time and can be used to balance the system, there's huge opportunity there. So our role is changing. We've talked a little bit about this as Orion. We need to make that local system balance, right? And we need to make sure that we're doing our bit for the national system, working with Transpower, the grid operator, to make sure that the lights stay on nationally. It's distributed future. I'm going to move on from this. This is a piece of work done by this Boston Consulting Group a couple of years ago, which looked at a decarbonisation pathway for New Zealand's electricity system. It concluded halfway through a smart system evolution was the way to go. And one of the key takeouts here was the amount of investment that's needed to support the transition. So this work showed $20 billion every decade was needed between now and 2050 into the distribution sector alone. Just to give you an idea of the scale of what's needed to support this. On the more positive side, just pointing at a few resources to have a look at. This is work done by ECA in partnership with ourselves and Main Power last year which looked at the it's called the Regional Energy Transition Accelerator, and looked at what's the pathway to transition all those coal boilers. Which ones are likely to go to electricity, which ones to biomass, and when. It's quite an interesting read if you're interested in that, and it forms the basis of our planning at the moment. And then, has anyone heard of rewiring Aotearoa? Yeah, so if you want to have a look at this, a relatively new organisation, they've recently, in the last couple of months, produced 2 reports. One is electric homes and one is electric farms. And Mike Casey, who is the CEO there, is a farmer, cherry farmer from Otago, and he's electrified his whole farm. So based on that, he and his team have developed some guidance on the benefits of electrifying farms and electrifying homes the same. And the electrifying homes one, the conclusion there is New Zealand's one of the first countries in the world to reach a tipping point where fully electrified homes make financial sense for the household, particularly if you can get a low-cost loan. Energy resilience, next bit of the trilemma. If any of you are familiar with natural hazards, you've got hazards, an earthquake or a flood, you've got your exposure to it, how near are you to it? And you've got your vulnerability, how much is it going to impact you? How strong is your home, for example, in the case of an earthquake? And risk is the intersect of those 3 things. If you think about an energy system that's largely moving towards electrification, there's a few things. Firstly, hazards are going up with climate change. Okay. And our vulnerability is going up. We rely more and more on electricity, like for your transport, for your heating, for your communication and beyond, which means ultimately that risk is going up. And how do we manage that? A few things here. We as a network company, we're strengthening our network in response to that and making sure that our assets are not in flood areas and the like. So this is an example of a Bromley to Milton underground cable that we've just finished. Just strengthening the cable, replacing an old cable with stronger cable, that it will be more resilient and will also help our network respond more. If there are outages in one area, we can rejig the network to keep the lights on. This is an example of a resilience hub, just a concept that could be useful for us as a community. So it's saying, take your civil defence centres or your community centres. How about we put solar on the roof, we put storage in, we have EV charging there, and that's where, in an event, if there is an outage, that's where the community go to get access to their critical energy services for the period until the network can come back on. You saw a bit of this happening with Gabriel in the north. There are a few areas which are able to do that. And then this one is about a bunch of Leafs which are charging a building in Japan. Anyone got an idea what year that was? 2014. Right. So, and it's the really old Leaf. I've got charging buildings. It's coming. Vehicle to grid, vehicle to home is coming. It's not yet readily available in New Zealand, but it is coming.
And what is the holdup?
Standards. So the vehicle manufacturers are getting in, the standards interfaces, the right interface between the vehicle and the grid or the home. So a bit of that. And equity, we've talked about affordability. We've also talked about access. That's a horrible image. So affordability is helping to make sure everyone's home is up to a minimum standard. Access, I use the Leaf as an example because I bought my Leaf in, I don't know, it's one of the really early ones, 2011, and I bought it about 6 years ago for about $10,000. Saves me about $5,000 a year in energy costs. I plug it in at night on the cheap rate, right? Which is great for me, right? That's lovely. But $5,000 a year for a lot of households is really life-changing. So how do we make sure that everyone can get access to that kind of benefit? And a couple of inspirational things from an energy equity piece perspective. On the left here, we're looking at the benefits of clean energy, significant in terms of decarbonisation. Benefits of local clean energy, so you get jobs, you might get some bill savings, you might avoid some expensive transmission upgrades, and you get greater resilience and reliability. If you've got locally owned clean energy, you're adding more benefits on top of that. So local economic benefits, jobs, bill savings, wealth creation, community decision-making, democracy, sovereignty, I think you were mentioning before, and beyond. Okay, so increasing benefits as you move along. This is an example of Kainga Ora and Areake, which is the National Energy Research Innovation Centre, partnered to look at to develop an energy sharing trial where the community housing, the social housing owned by Kainga Ora, had solar put across all the roofs that were suitably oriented, and then a sharing scheme so that all the tenants of those homes could get access to the benefits. So that's a pilot that's just been going on over the last year or so.
It meant they had to have their own legislation.
They had to change, they had to get a waiver on the rules. Yeah.
Can't do that.
Multiple trading relationships. Yeah, but it could come if there's enough demand for it. It could be embedded. And this was a pilot to demonstrate the value of it. And then this one's an example from Oxford, which is my hometown in the UK, the low carbon hub there, where they've set up a system to enable local people and businesses to invest in local energy assets. So this is their little social enterprise model. They have two entities. One is the investment arm, so people invest in those assets. And then the investors take a capped dividend, okay? And any surplus over and above that is reinvested back into the community through a community interest company or community trust effectively, and is then used to support energy outcomes and services basically to the local community. And this is the one I love. This is about community level action plans. So you can have local energy plans, so a council or a region coming together to figure out their plan. This is real flax roots communities. I used to live just here, kind of in my hometown back in the UK, and they've come up with a zero carbon energy plan to 2050, which includes everything from energy efficiency, flexibility, supply, both solar on roofs, on ground, co-owned storage systems, and getting the whole piece to work. It's really cool. And very quickly, just a few things that we're doing. So we've gone through the trilemma there, okay? We've been decarbonisation, talked about resilience, and we've talked about affordability and equity and some of the different things that we could do in that space. Just a few little summary of what Orion's doing. So I've talked about our purpose, powering a cleaner, brighter future with our community. Driving prosperity for our region through balancing energy affordability, energy security, and sustainability. Think the trilemma. Okay, and we have 5 themes. The first one is facilitating decarbonisation and hosting capacity. That means the ability to host distributed energy resources and new demand at lowest cost. Okay. The lot in there is about flexibility and enabling flexibility. The second one, investing to maintain a safe, reliable, resilient network. So that's in many ways doing what we already do, but doing it really well and making sure that our assets, our infrastructure is up to standard to deal with the hazards and events that could come. Being a force for good in the community we serve. That's all about working with local partners to develop integrated local energy plans so that we're not designing a network in isolation of what a council might be planning to do or a community might be planning to do. We need to link this all together. And community energy, how are we working with our communities to support their aspirations? And then the third workplace, this is about making sure we've got the people, the workforce that we need. There's a major workforce shortage in the energy sector locally, nationally and globally. This is about making sure that we have access to the people that we need to do our work, make fit for purpose capital structure, making sure we've got the ability, we've got the investment that we need to build a network that will support the future.
You're owned by the councils, right?
Yeah, we're owned 90% by Christchurch City through Christchurch City Holdings and 900 Selwyn.
They expect a dividend.
Yes, absolutely.
So your purpose is also to make money.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's really nice saying all the nice things.
Yeah.
But you make money by selling capacity on your network.
Yeah.
So
Why is that not a nice thing?
I think that's fantastic. But you know that really is your purpose, is to make money for the council.
But it's their responsibility. It's not their purpose, it's their responsibility.
Our purpose is to provide network services
Yes.
and to deliver a return to our shareholders, right? Who happen to be the council.
I guess what I'm sort of getting at is where are the incentives for you to do all the good stuff? Because really you want to be building as long as you can get a return on capital, you want to be building as much network as possible. Well,
if we thought that nothing, if there was no technology, if there was no ability to flex and optimize, yeah, we just have to keep building up, right? Because that's what you would all be wanting, because you want the lights to stay on.
Yeah. So if we set up, the Lincoln
Yeah.
co-op,
Yeah.
it was all distributed and didn't need you at all, you'd be really pleased.
We wouldn't be, I don't think. No, and I don't think that's a good outcome for New Zealand. I'd be really pleased if you set up a Lincoln co-op, and I'd be the first one to join with you and do it, because I live here. But I don't think off-gridding is a solution in a country which has got amazing renewable energy resources and an amazing grid that we've all paid for.
Well, what I'm saying is the tensions.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Your tensions, and they're healthy tensions, like for any business, right? You have to, if you're not making money, you're losing money. You're not going to be around for very long. If you've invested as a community, and your council's invested, you might want to return to keep your rates down. So I think it's a really healthy tension, but you're right, it's a tension.
And you're not the major cost. The major costs are the gentailers, and they certainly are trying to make profit at your expense. So you can actually have a local one working with Orion, but not necessarily using the gentailers.
You could set up a community retailer if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But just quickly, so we developed last year. We developed some future energy scenarios, which was a new initiative. And so this was acknowledging all the uncertainty that we faced, and that linear planning doesn't really work anymore in the face of all of that uncertainty. So these were scenarios here. They're all available online if you want to go on our website and have a look. And all the information that sits behind them, all the different variable inputs that we put in, and how we brought those together. But you'll see, I want to flag two things. There's two sort of key scenarios. One is system transition, when basically everything is working towards a national system. So flexibility is largely being used to support spot market participants and optimise for them, which is largely what you're seeing at the moment. Consumer and place space is when we're optimising locally. We're somewhere in the middle, but these are scenarios to put edges around it. And from those, we model what happens to our network peaks, significant difference in network peaks. And that all flows through to our asset management plan, which is what we're planning to invest in over the next 10 years. Won't go into that, but this shows you the things we've talked about: growth in urban form, transport, process heat, new generation, flexibility are the big drivers of network peaks. And remember, network peaks is what drives our need to invest. Norwood, we've built a new grid exit point at Norwood, finished earlier this year. That's the grid exit point of where the transmission system meets the distribution system. And that was intended to support the demand growth that we're seeing out in Rolleston and in the local area, and to enable decarbonisation. Okay. Facilitating flexibility in Lincoln and beyond. Anyone heard of the Lincoln Flexibility Project? Oh, what? Okay. So this is where we've gone out to market to procure flexibility, demand side flexibility, because we've got peak. We're reaching, demand's reaching the capacity of our local infrastructure. So that's one of the first initiatives of its kind in New Zealand. There's been a couple. This is about the third. And it's just in process at the moment. But ResiFlex I've mentioned, and then we're partnering with a bunch of different organisations to figure out together how to grow flexibility on the demand side. And we've got an energy hub that we set up at Epic in the centre of Christchurch, late 2021. This is basically a space very similar to here to support collaboration on our energy transition. And we have energy exchange events. If you've not heard of them, they run every quarter. Have about 80 to 100 people turn up in person, online, different speakers, opportunity to come along and network and learn more about what people are up to. And the Canterbury Energy Wellbeing Collective, we established through the Energy Hub about a year and a half ago, when we invited a whole bunch of different organisations to come together who were involved in energy wellbeing, energy affordability, community energy in the surrounding area. And the Energy Wellbeing Collective was formed out of that. I think there's currently about 20 organisations. They meet every month and look at how they can work together to support better outcomes. And coming up, the team are just working with Areake and Community Energy Network to deliver a community energy activator programme in the local area, which is all about supporting communities who want to step into some of the opportunities in there. It's sort of a nationally significant programme, because there's never been a programme like this run in New Zealand. And it's very early days for community energy and energy communities in New Zealand. So it's a great opportunity to see if we can accelerate their growth. So in summary, huge opportunity to shape our energy future. for our place, whether that's your home, your town, your region, and to be potentially a pathfinder for others. We're like a little microcosm of New Zealand here in Lincoln, in Selwyn, in Canterbury. An opportunity to learn. But if we want to do that, we need to get a much clearer, shared, bold vision and ambition. We need to collaborate. We need to be willing to innovate and learn by doing and adapt as we learn. And we're going to need investment, we, community. And my invitation to you is to start local, start in your own home where you can influence change, start at your workplace, start in your local community and see what change you can create. And engage with us. I'll put links there if you want. But we need to, the challenge for us is knowing what people want to do or are thinking about doing, whether it be a large industrial customer who's looking to decarbonise their boiler, a new industrial customer that wants to come into the area, through to homes and communities that are planning to put significant amounts of solar on their roofs, whatever it might be. The more we understand what people are looking to do, the more we can make sure that we're investing appropriately to support that.
Secondly, I haven't heard anything about energy efficiency in the home regarding water heating. I'm a little biased. We supply heat pump hot water systems.
Yeah.
30% of the average home is hot water heating.
Yeah.
And the heat pump can reduce that by 75%.
Absolutely.
Why have you not mentioned it?
Because there's a lot of things we could do, but it's a great point. Energy efficiency, I agree, is where we should start collectively, and heat pumps do indeed deliver a significant coefficient of performance. So yeah, definitely an opportunity. But I think one of many things you can do in your home.
Yeah, and there's 1% loans for it, so
great.
It's brilliant. Yeah, return on investment.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. And again, I did mention the rewiring to your electrifying our homes report. Pretty sure it will be in there. I haven't tried. There's so much to cover, but it's a good point. It's a good call out. Yeah, great opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining me. You guys know why I like to work with Sam, and you're being challenged. Normally we'd have a Q&A, but we already had the Q&A throughout Sam's talk, right? So I know the team wants to go home at 5:30. So I thought, why don't we just have another nibble and another drink and have a discussion among ourselves? Is everybody happy with that? Yeah? Well, let's do that. And like I said, Sam, thank you so much. And drink responsibly, people. And 5:30 we're closing.